everybody. Welcome back to the Moose Club. For this episode, we're going to talk about some of the incoming freshman Republicans for this new Congress. I think there's kind of three that we were kind of discussing before this that were of interest to us. The Marjorie Taylor Greene, as Bork said, QAnon girl. There's Lauren Boebert, who is gun girl, and then there's Madison Cawthorn, who is the candidate from. Is he from North Carolina? South Carolina? Anyway, North Carolina. He was the candidate that he's in a wheelchair. He was in a car accident when he was 18, and he's a paraplegic. But those three have kind of been like the three big
stars
of the freshman class of the Republican Party, and all three have been done or said things that are peculiar, to say the least. So I know Marjorie Taylor Greene she's big into the QAnon conspiracy theories, like all these crazy things. First of all, how these people got elected, like her especially, like she's the one that I'm just like, how is this a thing that happened? But she's like all big into the conspiracy theories. The Lauren Boebert's all about the, like, I'm going to have my gun on me in Congress, like in session, like I'm going to protect myself here. Like it's just ridiculous. And then, when I was reading up on Madison Cawthorn a little bit more, I mean, he had his issues with like the pictures that surface of him at like the Eagle's Nest, like Hitler's like hideout thing. And like there were racial undertones with all that. But I was reading, and there was this this quote from him. So he's from Asheville, and the Asheville City Council passed a reparations resolution, and this was his response to the reparations resolution that the council passed. He said, "I think anytime we characterize an issue by race or by class or by physical ability, it's almost always based in a racist sentiment or an elitist statement. I don't want anything handed down to me because I'm in a wheelchair." So there's just a lot to, like, he's going to equate him being in a wheelchair to like hundreds of years of people being oppressed and like not being able to do anything, like having zero freedom is like, geez, I mean, he's 25 years old. Like doesn't strike me as very intelligent. His interview with Pamela Brown recently kind of made that very clear. But what is your guys' thoughts on some of these Republican freshmen here in Congress? And is this a signal of more to come of kind of what we're going to see from the Republican Party, or is this just more of like a symptom of Donald Trump and like not really gonna last all that long? What do you guys think, Joe?
Well, I mean, touching on that, I think 2022 is going to be especially if like the Republicans keep trying to like distance themselves, or like, I mean, I shouldn't say keep, they really haven't done it yet, but like you can sense the undertones of like Mitch McConnell and Imhoff like trying to like distance themselves in the party. I think as long as that keeps going, you're going to have these types of people really trying to make strong runs at primary sitting GOP elected officials. I think, Bork might have a different opinion on this, but like the Tea Party in 2010, I can understand how that happened. Like, I get the fiscal responsibility of just throwing hundreds of $billions at an issue that was kind of caused by the government. Like, if you don't really look into why it was, the fiscal mismanagement of the government under Bush,
right,
and policies and deregulations, like, if you don't understand like that aspect, I can understand why we had a movement to a party that wanted fiscal responsibility. I get that. But the fact that Representative Boebert from Colorado, her only stance, and like the only stance that led to her popularity, was she opened a restaurant that is like the waitresses walk around with guns. Like, the fact that we are getting to a party on the right that is literally just electing people because they are like culture shocks to the Democratic Party is beyond. It's not going anywhere good until like we start, or the Republican voters start understanding that this is not a smart way to elect, or smart policies to elect elected officials on. So I think I disagree with you about like Representative Greene being the scariest of the the headliners of the new freshman GOP. I think Cawthorn is a scarier like precedent of like young Republicans coming out and taking office on concepts of, hey, this businessman made a lot of money and he's a good story, or a good story. And who cares about how articulate and intelligent this guy is? Like, he's a good story. He's a successful businessman. So let's elect him to elected office to speak on behalf of all American people. I think that's a scarier precedent than anything. So
It's I can see that. I think
I think everybody knows Greene's a whack job. Like,
right. Yeah. Like,
I don't think people, and I think a lot of people will start to understand that Boebert's kind of just this, this culture shock to, democratic values, which, I think Trump was part of that, of just like sticking it to Democrats and like making them look like crazy, or trying to. But I mean, Cawthorn, just the precedent of just electing somebody that's so grossly unqualified to be an elected official.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. Like, he's got his story. It's an impressive story. Like, I mean, he had the car accident when he was 18, and now he's a United States congressman. Like, that's cool, impressive story. But like, I think people got swept up in the story as opposed to like, is he actually qualified to do this? And for anybody that watched his interview with Pamela Brown, I think the answer is definitely no. He is not qualified to do this. It was basically kind of the cliff notes of it was it was essentially centered around his objection to certifying the election. And he just kept saying that he kept using Wisconsin as an example of they violated the Constitution by changing their election laws and blah, 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 even though like they were changed by the Republican election administration previously, before even the 2016 election. And she was like, well, these same rules were applied to your state, North Carolina, and I don't see you complaining about the result. Like, it was just a train wreck of an interview. Like, he was just so bad. But yeah, no, the fact that he's not like this crazy wacko that like has all these, is QAnon and all these things, like, is more concerning. I would agree. What do you think, Bork, of these three, or anybody else that comes to mind for you?
Well, I think you just have to kind of look at how low the ceiling is for at least two of these people. I mean, like, the QAnon, like, her pretty much entire reason for being in Congress is now gone now that Trump isn't there. So it'll be tough for her to like really carve out I don't know, some sort of like idea that she's pushing for other than whatever Q develops in the post-Trump years. I don't know. It just seems like that has a really hard and very low ceiling of potential springboard support to do anything beyond like fringe house support. So then you have Gun Girl, and again, you still like, yeah, that appeals to a lot of Republicans, but like that in its own right has like, that's kind of become a toxic issue for Republicans in certain areas as well. So like, again, maybe the ceiling's a little higher for her, but not quite as high. And then, yeah, like Cawthorn, like you just kind of look at him and hear him talk, and I don't know, they all kind of suffer from the same problem, that none of them are that like appealing on the camera, like, or that inspiring of speakers, or even know how to navigate political matters. Like the thing you do now is you never contest the election. You just, yep, the election was what it was once all the votes were counted, and you move on. Like, you cut bait with Trump as quickly as possible. Like that's, but you know, obviously for some reason that these people can't do that because they think they'll just lose the Trump voters. So like that'll be the new, like, I don't know, benchmark for people going forward, where how easily were they able to navigate the period of, I don't know, like between now and the next election. Because if you turned on Trump, you're probably going to be getting like some sort of primary challenge, which a lot of people are already threatening primary challenges of Republicans who did cut bait with Trump early. So it wasn't like a straightforward decision, but like, I mean, Liz Cheney is probably going to lose her seat, I would guess. And what those people end up looking like that replace her, I don't know.
Yeah, that's, I mean, I think we would, all of us would say that we disagree very much with, you know, Liz Cheney's position on a lot of different policies, but like, she's not like a crazy person. Like, you know what I mean? Like, she's like, sure, we have very strong disagreements on a lot of things, but like, she's not nuts. Like, and yeah, I Joe, you kind of talked about, I do think we could see some parallels to like the Tea Party, when there was a lot of Republicans that primaried out other sitting Republicans. But then part of me is just like, these people are they can't stick around. But like, I don't know. Like the Marjorie Taylor Greene, like something just surfaced the other day, that there was some forum that she was on or something or another, and she was agreeing with commenters that were saying the Parkland shooting was a false flag. She was like, yeah, exactly. Like it's just like crazy things. Like,
well, the Tea Party benefited from like being astroturfed by the Kochs.
right. Yeah.
Like that helps. I mean, if your political issue also happens to benefit like the richest people in this country, you're going to be able to find cash for it. So yeah, the Tea Party was able to generate a lot of traction and get, you know, Cruz in office. He's pretty much like the high watermark of the Tea Party movement. So who would be like the high watermark of like the Trump movement? Probably Hawley, and then Cruz is still like, but how much ostracism are they facing right now on a lot of their stances that they took? Quite a bit. Whether they actually pay for it or not, you know, it kind of depends. I mean, Texas, Texas has always been changing, but whether it happens now to get Cruz out of there, tough to say. Or is Missouri going to be flipping out Hawley anytime soon? I think people are turning on Hawley pretty hard, but I think a lot of people have turned on Ted Cruz in the past too, and he has somehow managed a way to stick around because they're able to get a lot of money from people.
I think a big thing about Cruz that you could say, though, is like, say what you want about Beto, like the fact that Cruz, an incumbent senator from the Republican senator from Texas, was in a less than 2-point race against a pretty manila cutout of, just basic moderate values.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you run an effective or a better candidate in a race like a Castro, if you run Castro against Cruz, I think that you can have a legitimate election against Cruz in 2024. So I do agree with you that like these people are losing base with like the problem is here soon enough, you're really just going to have a Republican Party that's going to be two different parties.
Yeah. Well, yeah. There's a push,
and that's going to be a problem with for them is like you're just going to have a moderate Republican Party, use moderate how you want to use it, but that's just going to be just flanked by people that are going to have bigger support because the majority of the Republican Party is on the side of this conspiracy Trumpist platform. Also, just to add some comical relief to it, I love how for the last 6 months you've been hearing about cancel culture from Republicans saying that of Democrats, but then if a person of leadership who's done immense things for the Republican Party, there's stories of Liz Cheney going around the country, helping fundraise for all kinds of Republican congressmen and senator or Congress representatives and senators. The fact that she takes one conscious vote and they just want to cancel her is just the ultimate irony.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
add a little comical relief to the discussion.
Just to kind of wrap up here, are there any freshman Democrats this time around that you guys are particularly excited for? I know Ossoff I thought his campaign was pretty impressive. I don't know. Corey Bush, I thought was an interesting candidate.
Yeah. Jamal and Mondare.
Yep.
I'll be interested to see the Reverend as well.
Yeah, Jamal Bowman, the school principal, right? Isn't that what he beat in the primary, he beat out somebody that was
someone in New York,
15 or a 16 term. Yeah.
I think Padilla's a pretty interesting, he hasn't been elected, so maybe a little difference, but he's going to be fine if he ever does face election. But he seems like
in California.
Yeah, the person I took over president's.
Replace Kamala.
He seems like a pretty, a person going places. But I think the all-star of the newer Democratic parties for a potential, presidential candidate is probably Ossoff. And he's an interesting story, and very articulate and speaks, or his speeches are somewhat, he has charisma when he's giving them. So I think he'll be interesting to see where he goes. I like Corey Bush. So yeah, just not a lot of freshmen this go around because of Republican gains in the House. But
yeah, true. It's It'll be interesting with those three Republicans that we talked about, what happens with them in the midterms. I would imagine, I would think that especially Greene, she'll probably have a primary challenger. I would think, but I'm not very familiar with her district either. So maybe that's
none of them are going to have a hard time getting reelected if they win their primary.
So
it's really all in very safe Republican districts.
So the primary is the bigger hurdle for them than anything.
Yep, and that's why they can be crazy.
Okay. Well,
they don't face any ramifications for being crazy.
Yeah. All right. Well,
unless the Q people stop voting.
Yeah, true that. Which is possible because Q's kind of going downhill.
That'd be great.
Hopefully.
Be fantastic. All right. Everybody make sure that you like, follow, share, subscribe, Boost Club Pod, and then be sure to find us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts by searching the Moose Club. All right. Be on the lookout for future episodes, and thank you for watching.